What up, party people? What up, YouTube? Yeah, this is Chef, New Zealand Murder History. Welcome to my new show. It's a lot like my old show. It's just me kicking it in the car. Today I've got a scripted podcast for you guys, so I hope you enjoy that. We're also going to be reading an article. So we'll set this up. Yeah, when I switched my old phone, I thought I could clone my YouTube channel, but it didn't work out for me. I didn't have the old password for one of my old emails or something, so that's why I started this new channel. Shout out to my 4 subscribers. Thanks for bearing with me a minute. Okay, let's kick it. Ashburton WINZ shooting 2014. I got another South Island high profile for you. Yeah, so for those watching not from New Zealand, WINZ stands for Work and Income New Zealand, and it's our social welfare unemployment benefit system, right? Like in Australia, they've got one, it's called Centrelink. But anyway, there's a WINZ office in every town big enough to have a supermarket in New Zealand, or just about. And cities in New Zealand would typically have a few WINZ offices dotted around the surrounding suburbs, you know? Anyway, my show is not suitable for children. Kids, click off. And anyone who's been in a mass shooting or been shot, also click off and seek support from your doctor or call one of the many 0800 numbers available. New Zealand murder history is just for educational purposes and not to cause offence to the victims in this case, or the Ashburton WINZ shooter, or anyone really. My show is almost entirely put together from news articles on the internet and newspapers. I don't have access to inside information in this case, and if I ever do discuss a case where I do have some random piece of information that isn't from the mainstream media, I'll discuss that further. So who was Russell John Tully? The crazy narcissist who tips hydrogen peroxide into his ear to treat a skin disorder that he doesn't even have. The only guy I've ever heard of to fire 7 defense lawyers in 1 court case, then represent himself. This episode of New Zealand Murder History will attempt to answer this question. Okay, so Ashburton. According to Wikipedia, in June 2023, Ashburton had a total population of 20,800 people. Yeah, and I got that off www.en.m.wikipedia, so wikipedia.org, arrow wiki. Yeah. But anyway, long story short, born on March the 14th, 1966 in Ashburton Hospital, Russell John Tully was a 48-year-old bloke who had found himself on hard times. He was homeless. He lived in a tent by the Ashburton River. Yeah, but growing up, he grew up in a Catholic family with 1 sister and 1 brother. And on the 1st of September 2014 at 9:51 a.m., he rocked into the Ashburton office of Work and Income wearing a green hoodie with a double black and single white striped hoodie, a ski mask and black trousers, armed with a shotgun. The lady behind the counter was 67-year-old WINZ receptionist Peggy Noble. She never really stood a chance. Click, click, boom, boom. Absolutely horrible. So this here is a picture of John Tully in the Work and Income office. So you can see the sign in the background there says Work and Income. Wearing the distinctive green hoodie with the 1 white stripe, double black stripe. Here's a picture of the defendant in court, mouthing off at the judge. Yeah, and so here's the lady that he shot, Peggy Noble. She was a WINZ receptionist. She was 67. Yeah, Maori lady, just working the counter at WINZ. And this lady here, who he would also go on to shoot and kill, this is 55-year-old caseworker Susan Lee Cleveland. That's her with her dogs, obviously. But yeah, well, I've got the pictures. I'll give you guys a quick geography lesson. So, for example, that's New Zealand, right? And then you've got, so down here you've got Christchurch on the South Island, where my thumb is. But then if you go just a little bit inland from Christchurch and south, that's where Ashburton is. That's where the crime's taking place. So Canterbury is the biggest district in New Zealand. It's massive. Christchurch is mid-Canterbury. Ashburton is like south inland a bit. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, Russell thought he was a tough guy, alright, but he was only really good against unarmed women. I mean, it hardly seems likely to me that Russ the Muss is running around Otago Correctional Facility, punching over gang presidents and the likes. Nah, I doubt it. But yeah, that's where he's kicking it anyway, on a 27-year non-parole sentence. But he wants to get transferred to Christchurch Men's. I doubt they'll ever let this fella out of the prison system, even after the 27 years is over. It's as Donald Trump would say, he's one sick puppy. But then again, this is New Zealand, not the States, so your guess is as good as mine. But yeah, when I wrote this podcast, I read New Zealand Herald article, Ashburton Work and Income Killer Russell Tully on Hunger Strike Behind Bars, written on May the 2nd, 2020 by Kurt Bayer, available on www.nzherald.co.nz. I read Otago Daily Times article, WINZ gunman threatens legal action to move prisons. So that's obviously what I was talking about before when he's trying to get transferred from Otago Correctional Facility to Christchurch Men's. But anyway, that was also written by Kurt Bayer for the New Zealand Herald. That one was on May the 10th, 2020. But I was actually reading it off the Otago Daily Times website, so it was www.odt.co.nz. But yeah, it was originally written for the Herald. I read a stuff.co.nz article. Russell John Tully went from nicest bloke to killer, written on the 9th of March 2016 by Martin Van Bainen. And that one's available on www.stuff.co.nz. I read NZ Herald article, WINZ shootings, Russell John Tully found guilty of murder, written by Kurt Bayer on March the 9th, 2016. And of course you can find that on nzherald.co.nz. NZ Herald article, WINZ killings, CCTV captures shooting build-up, originally written for the Ashburton Guardian on the 3rd of September 2014 by Anna Leask. And you can find that one on www.nzherald.co.nz. And just before I was getting ready to record, I found a great podcast by crime reporter Anna Leask called The Ashburton WINZ Murders, The Shocking Rampage of Russell John Tully. And you can find that one on Apple Podcasts, uploaded on the 25th of October 2020. It's part of a series put together by the New Zealand Herald called A Moment in Crime, which comes recommended by New Zealand Murder History. So get in there, party people. But you know, it was a good podcast. I got quite good information off that. But anyway, back to it then. So Russell John Tully. basically, he was a 48-year-old, very antisocial person, quite delusional. He would hold on to the past really to a character flaw, and he was drifting at the time around the South Island. Things weren't going super well for him financially. Yeah, but you know, he struggled to hold down a job, but boy did he know how to hold a grudge. And of course he said he made a lot of money working in the mines over in Australia, but you know, it's hard to verify any of these facts about his life. We're just not really sure. I mean, who knows? I mean, we don't understand what made him crack on September the 1st, 2014. We just don't, you know. I mean, anything could have happened, and sometimes I think we underestimate the negative effects of homelessness and the associated anxiety. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are watching right now, rolling your eyes and that, and you know that's okay. But you know, I've wanted to cover this case on my show for a long time, and see, I remember this one personally because, yeah, I just remember when this happened. I went to the WINZ office in Johnsonville, and I had to get like an email or something like that, and I had to hand it in. I was trying to get my I can't remember, a medical cost paid for or something like that, and I went and I printed out this email that I was trying to hand into the front desk, and then I went back, and there was a cop standing outside the Johnsonville WINZ, and the car park was empty, and I was like, I explained, I was like, hi officer, I'm here, I got to hand in my I can't remember, my bank details or IRD or whatever, something I had in this email I remember because I had to go to an internet cafe to print it. But anyway, and cop was like, no, sorry, son, we've sent everyone home. Someone's called up the Johnsonville WINZ and threatened to shoot the place up. And I was like, oh man, that's so bad. And he's like, yeah, no, we don't actually think they're going to do it. We know who they are. They're known to police. We're not really worried about it, but obviously we have to take this seriously regarding the shooting in Ashburton recently. And I was like, yeah, no, of course, no worries. So I left. But anyway, that's what I remember about the case. Some nutter in Johnsonville was threatening to do the same a couple of weeks later. Yeah, it was annoying. So anyway, Russell John Tully had beef with the WINZ workers Kim Elizabeth Adams and Peggy Noble, and possibly Susan Lee Cleveland also. He was pissed because WINZ wouldn't pay the bond on a 3-bedroom flat, forcing Russell to remain homeless. But when they refused to pay out for hydrogen peroxide on his disability allowance so he could tip the harsh chemical into his ear, well, that was the final straw. So on September the 1st, 2014, Russell John Tully loaded his pump-action shotgun with solid shot ammo, left his campsite by the Ashburton River, and went for a bike ride into town to unleash 61 seconds of mayhem on the local Work and Income New Zealand. The CCTV from the shop fronts around Ashburton picked him up riding, wearing a distinctive hoodie, green jacket with a white stripe with black stripes running above and below the white stripe running across the arms and chest. Yeah, he calmly chained his bike up on Cass Street, just in front of the WINZ office, and went in. I personally thought this move was strange, as it would delay his getaway, having to unlock the bike chain, but then again, I guess he didn't want to risk someone pinching his bike at such a pivotal moment, you know? Yeah, so anyway, Lucy Annabelle Waller, she was waiting patiently at the front desk, waiting in front of the queue for her turn to talk to Peggy Noble, and Russell John Tully stepped up behind her holding the shotgun down by his side. He was calm and collected, telling Annabelle Waller to get out, which she did. Hearing the shotgun go off as soon as she stepped out onto Cass Street, Peggy Noble was killed instantly. At 67, Peggy was old enough to retire but chose to keep working the front desk at her local Ashburton WINZ office because she liked to help people. Peggy Noble was a Maori lady from Tainui tribe. So Russell John Tully went on to shoot 43-year-old Lindy Curtis in the right leg, sending her to Christchurch Hospital with life-threatening injuries, but as luck would have it, she would be okay. Lindy Curtis is a South African lady who moved her family from South Africa to be safe from violent crime. Russell John Tully was armed with a pump-action shotgun, firing solid-shot ammo. He tried his best to blast case manager Kim Adams but missed. Kim made a run for it, later saying that she felt the air displacement across her face as the shot flew past her. Susan Lee Cleveland was a 55-year-old Pākehā lady who loved dogs and horses. She used to work at the Christchurch City WINZ office, but chose to transfer to the Ashburton WINZ following the Christchurch earthquakes. Lee Cleveland was the last WINZ lady to get gunned down by Russell John Tully. He shot her 3 times as she begged for her life. And obviously, I can't say for sure because we can't ask her, but I would imagine she would have known exactly who the guy in the ski mask coming straight for her was. Oh, great. Here comes that total whack job who tips hydrogen peroxide in his ear. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Who's going to feed the dogs now? Horrific. She knew he was coming for her. But yeah, that was that. That was the 61-second WINZ shooting. Russell John Tully walked out the front door triumphant, having just vanquished his foes. But when he went to unlock his precious bike to make a getaway, Russell didn't count on David Coos, a 49-year-old freezing works worker, crossing back over Cass Street to have a go at him. "You blew her to bits, you bastard!" "Hey, fuck off, mate!" Russell John Tully went to hit David Coots with the butt of the shotgun. David quickly backed down and Russell jumped on his bike riding off, but in the commotion, the masked gunman dropped his bike helmet. Police would later have the bike helmet DNA tested, linking Russell John Tully to the crime scene. Good on you, David Coos. Shout out from New Zealand murder history. Good job. I mean, I know he wasn't able to stop Russell John Tully, but remember he was armed with a shotgun, so it's sort of like, you know, if he took it any further, he probably would have got blasted. So rest assured, David's heroic actions that day would not go unnoticed by the New Zealand police. So later when this unfolded, what he did obviously, and then Russell John Tully dropping his helmet, the upshot of all that was the New Zealand police, they gave him an award for bravery. Yeah, so he had to travel from his hometown to Picton down to Christchurch City to pick up the award at the 2016 May Police Parade in May 2016. You see, David Coots had moved back to Picton shortly after the shootings. Here's a quote from stuff.co.nz article. David Coos accepts police award for courage in Ashburton WINZ shooting. Written by Miles Hume on May the 6th, 2016. Available on www.stuff.co.nz. I was better off going home. And I'm glad I did go home. I wiped all that bad stuff out. You see, David Coos was waiting in line to drop off his medical certificate for a shoulder sprain when Russell John Tully started blasting. He grabbed the woman next to him and led her out the door, telling the security guard to follow suit. Now, I know I've got a lot of subscribers over in America, and I'm sure at least some of them will be thinking, well, why didn't the security guard pull his own gun and blast Russell John Tully before he could shoot Peggy Noble? Well, that's a good question. We do things a little different over here. I mean, even our cops typically don't carry firearms. I mean, they do have guns. They've got like a Glock pistol and a lockbox in the boot of every police car, but the only time you really see them carrying guns is when they're guarding a crime scene or something, maybe executing a search warrant. But yeah, security guards, they don't even carry stun guns over here. But if he had a stun gun, would that be enough to jump Russell John Tully and disarm him before he could get a shot off? I mean, I guess we'll never know. The only thing I would say in this guy's defense, and I'm not sure why I'm defending him, I mean, let's face facts, the bloke's a pretty limp dick security guard. But I mean, you know, like this bloke David Coots, who was just in line, I mean, he had more balls than security, and he was like just a 49-year-old freezing works employee with a sprained shoulder. I mean, but anyway, what I would say what I would choose to say about the security guard just taking off like that is, I mean, things like this are pretty rare in New Zealand. Like, we do get the occasional mass shooting, I mean, but they're not really typical. But if you think about it, the Ashburton WINZ shooting, it hardly even qualifies as a mass shooting by USA standards. I mean, we've got like 2 murders, 1 attempt murder, and a woman who gets shot in the leg. Probably wouldn't even make the front page. But yep, security guard walked straight out the front door. That's what happened. And speaking of what happened, let's get back to mad old Russ the Muss and how the police caught up with the killer homeless man. Well, basically, the cops found Russell John Tully hiding up a macrocarpa tree on farmland 7.5 kilometers away. Alright, do you guys want to hear this article I've got then? So this is by Kurt Bayer for NZ Herald. So I got it off www.nzherald.co.nz, and it's called WINZ Shootings, Trial of Russell John Tully, Probably a Judge's Worst Nightmare. And it's written on the 9th of March 2016. The trial of cold-blooded Ashburton WINZ shooter Russell John Tully, largely held without him being present in court, is believed to have been a legal first in New Zealand and was probably a judge's worst nightmare, law experts say. Tully refused to cooperate with at least 6 lawyers ahead of his High Court double murder trial, including several experienced defence counsel and 2 Queen's counsel before sacking them, the Herald understands. He felt they were working for the Crown rather than in his best interests, it is believed. Tully, found guilty today, Wednesday, at the High Court in Christchurch of murdering Ashburton WINZ receptionist Peggy Noble, 67, and case manager Susan Lee Cleveland, 55, inside the Cass Street Government Building on September the 1st, 2014, was first due to stand trial in May last year. He further claimed that he had not... The trial date was abandoned by Justice Cameron Mander, a former highly experienced and much respected Crown prosecutor, after Tully refused to take counsel from his lawyer. He further claimed he had not received proper disclosure of the Crown case against him. Tully also embarked on several hunger strikes. A new trial date was set down for last November, but at the 11th hour he again sacked his legal team, forcing Judge Mander to again abandon the trial date. A third and final trial beginning on February the 22nd this year was agreed upon after Tully gave assurances that he would cooperate with lawyers James Rapley and Phil Shammy, but again relations broke down. The trial still proceeded with both Mr. Rapley and Mr. Shammy appointed amicus curiae or friends of the court in order to assist the court with the running of the trial and to cross-examine witnesses for Tully. So that's because he's representing himself, so they're going to be still cross-examining the witnesses and stuff. However, when the trial began, Tully was not present in court. When the jury was selected, no accused person was present in the dock. When Tully was due to be arraigned with the serious charges put to him, he was not in the courtroom, so the court's default position was to record not guilty pleas. The trial began with the Crown outlining its case against Tully. He was still not there. It wasn't until the morning of day 2 that Tully made his first appearance before the jury. But as the Crown announced its first witness, Tully interjected, "Excuse me, Your Honour, but what am I actually doing here?" Tully, restrained in a wheelchair, said he needed to lie down and claimed he was not fit to stand trial. Judge Manda repeatedly asked him to be quiet before instructing correction prison wardens to remove Tully from the courtroom. The judge, who later told the jury that it was his decision to proceed without the accused present in court, was one that was not taken lightly, then directed the jury to ignore the pantomime and to simply concentrate on the evidence. Justice Manda also told the court that Tully had been afforded the possibility of legal representation, but as events transpired, regrettably, he is not legally represented. Tully's second appearance a few days later resulted in a similar short-lived outburst. Tully remained in court for the last day of the Crown's evidence. The Herald understands that while there is a provision within the New Zealand law for the trial in absentia, there is no legal precedent for the major criminal trial here, beginning without the accused being in court. Okay, so do you guys remember this case? And he was like popping off in the courtroom, and he was like, "Judge Manda is trial fixing," and he was like getting real angry, and like Judge Manda was like, order in the court, Mr. Tully," and he was like getting real angry. It was, oh man, it was pretty out of control. But yeah, that's what they're talking about here in this article. So we'll finish this article up now. Law clerks at the Ministry of Justice are understood to have been scouring British and Commonwealth records for any legal precedent, but haven't been able to find any similar cases. Nigel Hampton QC, one of New Zealand's most experienced defence lawyers, who has conducted more than 100 murder trials, said he has never come across anything like this. "It must have been a hell of a dilemma for the trial, Judge," he said. "This judge, who I know to be a patient man, will have done his very best to ensure a fair trial, but it really troubles me that this was a trial with the accused ostensibly self-represented, and he was not in court and not playing a part in the trial." Mr. Hampton doubts the jury would have been able to meet the judge's directions by ignoring Tully's in-court behaviour. "At a visceral emotional level, it must have some impact, and some lasting impact on people who witness this sort of kerfuffle, and I am concerned by that," Mr. Hampton said. "It certainly makes a bit of a mockery of the process." Under British laws, trial by absentia were until 2001 banned and are still extremely rare. Criminal law expert Professor Chris Gallivan isn't aware of a trial of such magnitude being conducted in absentia in New Zealand. This is probably a judge's worst nightmare, said Professor Gallivan, Deputy Pro-Vice Chancellor for the College of Humanities and Social Studies, or Social Sciences rather, at Massey University. This would have been, anyway, that's, and then it just goes on and it's got some stuff, different examples of people who have been tried by in absentia. Yeah, like for example, Amanda Knox got tried in absentia in 2013 for the 2007 murder of Meredith Ketcher. And they went over and overturned that later, but yeah, that's an example of a high-profile case where the tried where the defendant's actually not there. But yeah, obviously he was going crazy in the courtroom. They didn't know what to do. But yeah, it is interesting because you could argue that he didn't receive a fair trial. But I mean, the bloke definitely did it, so I'm probably not going to lose too much sleep on it. But yeah, how could it be fair if he's supposed to represent himself and he's in the holding cells below? Alright, now I got something else I wrote here. I don't think that was the end of it there. So what happened next then, you ask? Well, this is when Russell John Tully gets caught. Basically, bulk cop cars, the armed offenders squad, and a police chopper, plus news vans full of reporters, cameras, crews, etc., all blasted off from Christchurch at top speed, descending on the small town of Ashburton. They surrounded the macrocarpa tree where John was hiding. He mustn't have been too high off the ground because when he refused his request, when he refused the cops' request to give himself up, well, they just sicked the dogs on him, and then they handcuffed him and all that. End of story. So yeah, he refused to come quietly. They sicked the dogs. So he must have just been sort of hiding in the tree rather than actually hiding up it, because dogs can't climb trees. Yeah, thanks for watching my show. I hope you found it interesting. Do you guys remember the Ashburton WINZ shooting? It was really high profile. Just under 10 years ago now, so it'll be September this year will be the 10th anniversary. Yep, that's it. That's what happened. Have a good one, everybody.